The movement towards awakening is referred to as your innermost request. And I think that when that calling calls you, as it has called all of us, honestly, we begin to learn how to listen. We begin to learn how to allow that natural emergence which awakens us, heals us, and transforms us. And most of our job is to learn how to let it do that and not get in its way. Probably the number one way we get in the way is our beliefs about it, or other people's beliefs about it, or even the beliefs we've created based on the experiences we've had and what we've read. And so what I want to talk about a little bit today, before we go into our dialogue, is the difference between reality and our projection onto reality. So the simplest way, I think, to find clarity with what I'm talking about is that if there's a story, that's projection onto reality. Because reality has no story. None. It's just, you might say, a direct experience, or when there's no self in the way, it's just a unified field of aliveness and perception. So your fundamental practice of bringing attention back and allowing awareness to emerge is the fundamental practice. It's really the essence of many, many practices, actually. We don't make that happen. This is a misunderstanding that I often bring up. We don't cause awareness. We don't cause awakening. We don't cause enlightenment. We don't cause healing. At best, we learn to be available for the natural processes that know exactly what they're doing. And our job is to learn how to be sensitive to those processes so we're not in the way. And that's an ongoing, lifelong learning, because awakening is a lifelong journey, honestly. Yes, you can move to there can be great changes in perception and in personal happiness and wellness and all of that we hear about, all the good stuff. But that's just the beginning of it. Those are the trappings of it, as it were. Those are the selling points of the journey. But the truth is, you don't have a choice, right? In fact, as I like to say, and I've discovered in my own experience, and many of you have certainly shared this with me, that we're forced into paying attention. We are forced into paying attention. And now, as we all know, with what we're facing, we've been very much forced into paying attention in ways that have been quite difficult, honestly, for the whole species and the whole planet. So this commitment to yourself has so much more value now, given the stresses and pressures that you may be under, to begin to find space, to begin to find true freedom, even in the midst of restriction and limitation. Freedom is fundamentally unconditional. It doesn't matter whether you're healthy or sick, whether you're in prison or you can run wherever you want to, whether you're a billionaire or homeless. It doesn't matter. Freedom is our fundamental nature. We can live from that. We can learn to live from that, whatever our circumstances are. So how you pay attention is the most important thing. And to begin to allow the natural refinement of attention to happen by itself. You'll see that as you pay attention, because really what's happening here in our gatherings is a process of You might say experience, discovery, experimentation, and a kind of profound ongoing learning that never has a conclusion about what it's learning. So there's never someone in the way of the process. This is really the most important thing to, I don't know if I'm saying it very well. It's hard to have the words to have it clear. But each and every one of us is being guided profoundly. That's not a belief that you're going to hang on to and, have, a sign on your wall. It's allowing the movement that is consciousness to guide you. And it might be, right now, it might be guiding you to feel, to be aware of the sensations you're having, even if they're uncomfortable or difficult, or the feelings that the emotions that may be arising. So you learn to be available for whatever's arising, even if it's fear, even if it's vulnerability, even if it's grief, sadness, longing, even if it's rage, frustration, irritation. Come out of your mind, out of your story, out of your conclusions, and come back to the aliveness of the energy of what's happening in your experience. That's your job, is to bring attention back to what is. What is will heal you and transform you. You're not doing that. You're not responsible for that. But does it make a difference in this process to learn how to pay attention? I think yes, it does. It sort of facilitates the process. It doesn't create the process. The process is going to happen anyway. It will. It'll just be a lot harder. That's why we figured this stuff out over thousands of years ago, that sitting still and paying attention actually helped this awakening process to mature and to embody. Some people think, oh, well, I just want to get enlightened. I want to get to to this place of freedom, and then I'm done. No. Then you start. That doesn't sell. That's not appealing. But the good news is you won't care, because it's just what you take care of. That's all. You chop wood, you carry water, you buy your groceries, you put on your mask, you social distance, you wash your hands, you do whatever you have to do. Get your vaccine. Try to get your vaccine. You hope there's an end to this, whatever it is. That's okay. You have your hopes, you have your desires, you have your fears, your overwhelm, and you let all that move through you. That's all. And you come back to openness. You come back to stillness. You come back to spacious freedom. And at some point, that spacious freedom is what's always here. And that's called awake. That's called realization, I guess. There's a lot of names. People have all kinds of labels for the stuff. Doesn't matter. Forget it. Throw that away, because it's in the way. That's going to be in the way, honestly. because it's still right here. There's still what needs to be taken care of. And you'll see that your attitude will be different, that your stuckness won't be there anymore. You become more like a Teflon, just kind of Teflon pan. It just goes in and out, it doesn't stick. So it comes through your experience and it releases. And it transmutes into this presence. So you learn what I call self-healing, which is to notice how a certain attention that you bring to your so-called personal relative arisings, a certain kind of attention allows it to release its energy and to bring light into your consciousness. So that's called alchemy. I call it transmutation. It's how this works. It's why your conditional reality is actually essential. It's an essential ingredient for your unconditioned discovery. So instead of pushing away what you don't want and getting rid of all your conditions, you actually welcome them in a way that doesn't turn them into beating yourself up, comparing yourself to others, and, self-immolating. That it becomes not the environment of, accentuating the shame and guilt and that you may have been programmed with, but actually frees you from all of that programming. It frees you from all programming. So you can live fully. But it's each moment, honestly. Those ideas are wonderful to hear. And when they become your reality, it is literally a different life. Even though you may be in the same place you're living or have the same job or relationship or conditions that you deal with, but it's not the same anymore. So come back if you've gotten stirred up, confused, aggravated. Come back, let go of these words and notice what's here. You'll begin to discover more and more and more this guiding force that is your life force itself, that is always here for you, always. It is not restricted by any restrictions whatsoever. And you will eventually learn to get out of the driver's seat. You will eventually learn to drop all the controlling and all of the pushing. And it will be such a relief. Such a relief.